All right, let's chat about the late night quarterfinal for, I mean, I guess if you're the East Coaster, or if you're, even the Central Time local, it was a late night for those of
Yeah.
us, right? In Central and Eastern Time, but a wild time, worth it, I think, to stay up a little bit,
Oh,
sort of see
yeah.
how this one played out. San Diego Wave FC, the hosts in this one, as sixth place Chicago Red Stars came into town to battle it out in this quarterfinal. San Diego Wave defeating the Red Stars 2-1. These two teams needing extra time to settle out the result. It was another game that gave us a little bit of everything. An early goal in this one, similar action, I think, that we saw from that first quarterfinal. The Red Stars break through in the goal scoring in this one in the opening 10 minutes. A little bit of an error. We saw
Mhm.
some veteran presence there, kind of, with the awareness and the presence of mind in Yuki Nagasato to go ahead and capitalize early in
Huge.
this game. A little bit of a chip to open up the goal scoring in this one.
This was not at all how I expected the opening minutes of this match to go, the opening 10 minutes, honestly, because I was expecting to kind of settle in and watch this game play out for like 30, 40 minutes before we actually saw like a goal, perhaps. I'm going to be honest. I was expecting a goal like before half, but not in the opening 10 minutes. And the way that it came about is very uncharacteristic of Kaylin Sheridan, because San Diego builds out of their back constantly. Sheridan is probably one of the best goalkeepers in the NWSL at using her feet, at creating space, at being that 11th field player, to kickstart the attack and be part of the buildup and the possession. She got an assist this year on an Alex Morgan goal. So Sheridan is confident with the ball at her feet, and her team is confident giving her the ball at her feet. So when she made this mistouch of an error and frankly passed it directly to Nagasato, it was heartbreaking. My jaw dropped. I was like, what just happened? However, I the wherewithal from Yuki Nagasato to hit it one time perfectly in the back of the net is fantastic, because I think a lot of players would have taken a touch, tried to get around Sheridan, and then passed it in the back of the net, because they were only 5 yards apart from each other, right? Like, Nagasato was putting high pressure on, and it paid off. And if Nagasato took an extra touch, I don't think it would have been a goal. I think Sheridan would have blocked it somehow,
Yeah.
done some things. And it was such a great first touch from Nagasato. I mean, that's a veteran in this league that knows what she's doing and understands in those split second moments what is going to change a game. And that changed the game for Chicago to start this match.
Yeah.
Looking at how San Diego rolled out, we weren't so sure about Taylor Korniak,
Yeah.
Alex Morgan, Amira Ali. Abby Dahlkemper definitely not available. We knew that before,
Right.
right before the game. We did know that heading into it. But even Alex Morgan, Taylor Korniak, we weren't sure how many minutes they were going
I
to get.
know.
Even
Well, let me ask you
yesterday
about.
afternoon, we
Let
weren't
me.
sure.
Let me ask you about that. So we did our preview, right? And we
Mhm.
normally do our previews ahead of the games, and because we do them ahead of the games, is we normally don't have, the availability reports, don't drop them until later. And with this one, like, naturally we got the availability reports
Mhm.
late on a Saturday evening. When they dropped, did anything surprise you out of it? Was it just sort of like what you were anticipating after sort of hearing the media availabilities ahead of the game?
Yeah, it was exactly what I was expecting to see, and you and I have talked about this. Availability reports give a blurred look at what is
Yeah.
actually happening with this team, because a player could be on minute restriction and say that they're completely available. A player could be on minute restriction and say that they're questionable. It's very up to the discretion of the team, honestly, at where they want to place them based on the availability actually of the player. So the fact that Morgan and Korniak were listed, but I knew they were going to have minute restriction to some extent. They didn't, right? Like, I mean, towards the very end of this one, but between these two sides, those were the two players that were the biggest question marks to me. And as the match went on, I think we saw how Korniak was feeling. She was hurting a little bit, like towards the end of this game, stopping for long periods of time to stretch out her legs to kind of shake them out. But between these two sides, both teams looked tired at the end of it. Chicago looking beat up towards the very, very end of this match. But
yeah, I think in extra time, yeah, for sure.
yes,
But I think from the first
yeah,
half to that final whistle of extra time, I think you absolutely saw it over the course of the 90 plus extra time, for sure. I am thinking back to that first half with the Red Stars. I mean, uncharacteristic error, quite frankly,
oh,
right, from by Sheridan. But when you're in the playoffs, you know, the margins are already so thin between all of these teams throughout a regular season that you add that, you have that added layer of playoff
mhm,
elimination. It gets even thinner. So, if you can imagine,
yeah,
and seeing the error happen in kind of real time, I think everybody was kind of like, "Oh, that's an oops," and that's not typically something that a keeper like Sheridan does often, right? But you've got Nagasato in that position, a little bit higher up for the Red Stars, purposely sort of playing that
mhm,
role. And we saw that from this Red Stars team. They looked in this first half like the team with the plan, right? They looked
oh,
like the team that had been here before a little bit, and it took a second, minute or two for the Wave to say, okay, our turn to sort of take the momentum in this game and run with it. It was a very good 45 minutes for the Red Sox.
huge. Oh my gosh, I'll even give them like 55 minutes because the opening goal coming in the 10th minute definitely deflated San Diego a little bit. They maybe not deflated them as much. Like I'll give them a 10% deflation right there, but for Chicago, it inflated them about 50%. So whatever they started out, let's say they started at 75%, they were well over 100 after that goal was scored. It was like, all right, like we have the confidence now to knock the ball around because we're already up a goal. Now your mindset as a player has to be, it's a 0-0 scoreline. We've still got to get another one. We've got to get another goal because there's still so much soccer left to play. But Chicago was fantastic for after the opening 10 minutes, 50 minutes of this match. They played lights out, passing the ball around, moving off the ball, pinging it with 1-2 touches. They looked like they had a plan. They looked like they knew it inside out, upside down, how they were going to execute it. They were 3 steps ahead of San Diego throughout this 45 minutes towards the end of the half. They looked fresh. They looked ready to go around this pitch. Chicago looked like the better team for the next 50 minutes of this match because they knew what they were doing. They were all over the pitch. They had Erin Wright in the center back role, which I like to see her there directing traffic and making sure things are going the way they need to be going, understanding that they have the confidence in Nair behind them defensively. But with the ball, it was beautiful. It was really beautiful to watch. A week off did this Chicago team incredibly well.
That's I think that's a little bit revealing, right? When you
Mhm.
sort of mention it that way, you're just like, oh, like this was a team that benefited from the international window a little bit to sort of start off their quarterfinal. But I'm with you. I thought I liked what I saw out of Chicago in the opening 45 minutes. I think a goal, if you're the Red Stars and you get a goal in early in that first half, that helps you settle in even more, I think, into a
Mhm.
game like this, a game that you had obviously entered with a bit of a game plan, sort of seeing this team kind of, within a mid block at times, stifling the midfield, the middle third a little bit, and sort of forcing things out kind of on the wings, which ended up kind of being very backfired on them a little bit. And we'll get into that further into the game. But watching the outside, the three back, sort of getting into their positions, sort of having that second player to be able to kind of be in a better open space to sort of win that second ball when San Diego was trying to sort of expose the space that was available in that final third. It was good. It was sound. It was organized, right? That's what it is. I think that's
It's
something that's not
organized.
too. That wasn't something that's too surprising out of this Red Stars team. That I think I've said it before about this team multiple times. There's a team that can organize you to death. It is the Chicago Red Stars, but unfortunately, It's a really, really tall order to organize another team to death over the course of 90 minutes, or in this case,
Right.
80 minutes, right? From that 10-minute goal and then through extra time, especially if you just, don't have the
It's
bodies, quite frankly, or the depth to do
yeah,
that. So
and
I
we
think going in at
know
halftime 1-0 was promising at the time.
for sure, and we know that Chicago can organize a team. We know that they can do that. We've seen it throughout this regular season, throughout the last several years. And when you look at the midfield with Gautrat, Colaprico, DiBernardo, Pugh dropping in there, these are players that have done it consistently and done it well for years and done it together for years, so they know what they're doing. But we have never seen a Chicago team um, organize for about 20 straight minutes. There was like they had the ball. That was it. And San Diego was chasing it. That was what was so impressive to see, because we know Chicago can do it, but doing it for an extended period of time consecutively was
Yeah.
really, really fun to watch.
I
This
think it
time.
was I think it was smart and sort of maybe a little bit of foreshadowing between these two teams, both of them kind of closing out the half even on like corner
Mhm.
kick opportunities, where Chicago sort of had the better of those, or the more of those leading into the half. But the Wave kind of bringing things on, I think, in those final 5 minutes and stoppage time
Mhm.
of the half, kind of leveling things out, having a couple of corner kicks to sort of close out that first half. I think, again, maybe a little bit of foreshadowing, because we saw this adjustment, made by Casey Stoney for the second half. And I think this is where the game was won. I mean, it's evident in terms of how we're going to talk about this now, what ended up playing out. Sophia Jakobsen coming into this game for San Diego Wave FC and coming in for Kelsey Turnbow in the 46th minute, I think changes everything
Yeah.
for San Diego in this game. And I think that automatically just told you what was going to be the difference maker in this game for both of these teams. It's not just about having depth at this point, but it's having a bit of experienced depth
Yeah.
going forward into these playoff rounds. And if you're Chicago, while you have a bench, you have a plethora of rookie and first year players,
Mhm.
that you are able to call on. Ones that, yes, got a lot of time during the regular season, but it's a little bit
It's
different
different.
energy when you get into this round, So
Yeah.
to have a Swedish international coming off of the bench, for San Diego Waves, so you saw the immediate impact that somebody like Jakobsen,
And
just creating problems on that wing. And that's what I mean when I say it sort of came
right.
back to haunt Chicago. You saw San Diego finally be able to sort of expose some of these pockets of space.
Yes, expose them for sure. And looking back at how Casey Stoney managed this game with her player substitutions, who she started, that's what she was looking for. She was playing the long game of who can I bring in off the bench to be game changers, because we've seen Sophia Jakobsen start a couple games for Stoney this year. She mainly came in off the bench, and that was her bread and butter. Now, the first 10 games of the season, it took her a little bit to get going, to understand her footing in this league and how um, Jakobsen could succeed individually in this NWSL. And once she figured that out, Stoney understood that she is a game changer off the bench, and giving her 45 minutes, having her come in at the 45-minute mark is exactly what San Diego needs, because we saw Jaden Shaw, the 17-year-old, get the start, which
Yep.
She deserves to play, and she's a good player. I think stacked up, Jakobsen is better than Shaw, but Jakobsen off the bench is the best that San Diego has to offer. And it proved right, because as soon as Jakobsen came in, it changed the way that San Diego managed this game and the way that they could attack pockets. And they were finding Morgan more. They were finding Korniak more. They had more opportunities and more chances. I mean, this game was end to end offense and attacking, because ends at the end of this full game, 30 shots to San Diego, 24 shots to Chicago. That is insane.
Outstanding.
That is
Outstanding time.
insane.
Outstanding numbers over the course of a very long
Five
game.
five saves for each goalkeeper, five huge, tremendous saves. But I think that the substitutes did change things,
Oh yeah.
especially for San Diego as this game went on. And
Yeah,
there was still 30 minutes left to play.
that was I think for me, I think that was the absolute X factor. I mean, you can pinpoint the exact moment in which the Chicago Red Stars just run out of gas in this game a bit, and it's right around the hour mark or so of it. And we see this equalizer come for San Diego Wave FC, right? Jakobsen getting Morse on her heels, beating her alongside the flank, nearly getting in line. We see Van Egmond making a good run into the box, being in a good position to get a foot on, and we see the equalizer, and it's right at the 67th minute, and you could just sort of see. I'm not saying that was necessarily something that completely deflated this Red Stars team, but at this point, if you're having that if you have that combination of, hey, we're starting to feel tired, and the legs are starting to get under us a little bit, and then you have conceded the lead at this point, it's a tough hill to climb back from, especially in a playoff game. And I just think that that's ultimately what we saw. And while the Red Stars are, again, really good at being an organized team, um it's enough to get you through the extra time. But then we just saw like the sheer exhaustion coming into play in for the Red Stars team specifically in the second half, because again, you have different players that you can bring into these situations. I mean, you had at one point, we talked about in the Kansas City and Houston game how Lavoisier was an injury sub, and you had an injury sub for Chicago as well. You saw Sarah Luber coming off of the pitch in the 80th minute or so, because just lingering issues.
Injuries,
This is a player that's been on and off the availability report for the Red Stars for the last several weeks with an ongoing lower body, I believe, ankle injury, and trying to stretch things out. But they were forced into this substitution, especially that late in the game, 1-0. And who do they have coming off of the bench with the most experience at a wingback position at this point? The rookie, Herrera, who had never played a wingback position before prior to becoming a pro.
Right. Like Chris Petroselli had options on the bench, right? Fit options that were eager and ready to go, but just so much inexperience because of how young Chicago's bench was. So that exactly, I think, like the forced substitute because of Lubert's injury, not entirely helping Chicago. Like Aguilera coming in and giving chase and giving energy, giving what she could in her role, but like not fully understanding the best ways to attack in that wingback role, or to honestly slow down what she could of Westphal and Shaw on this that near side for Chicago during those moments. But when you look at the injuries, like Danielle Colaprico going down with a bit of a scary injury, but ultimately playing out. Vanessa DiBernardo giving her blood, sweat, and tears throughout this match all over the pitch. And I think when we saw some of those players go down and the training staff come on the pitch, it was almost like, oh no, like who is next? Like who could step up? Who can fill this role that these players leave? And honestly, there is no direct answer for that, because no one can fill the hole of Colaprico or DiBernardo in the midfield, especially at the 70-minute mark. You still got potential extra time to play.
And that's a problem, right? Like, we need to call it like what it is. That's a problem. I think if you were looking at outside of the players themselves, I think you're looking even outside of the coaching staff. You're looking at, front office, executives who are responsible for fleshing out a roster and giving players support. You had a team that punched their ticket through and into the quarterfinals in the last possible day, and just watching them play through this quarterfinal, just getting exhausted minute after minute after minute, especially going through into this extra time. I mean, you have Yuki Nagasato coming out of this game in late extra time holding her groin at this point, and Ava Cook coming on in her place. And Ava Cook, another one of these rookies who had a very good showing in the first half of the regular season for the Red Stars, and has not actually had her number called throughout the second half and later stages of the regular season. But hey, you're a body on the bench, you should come in this game. So it's just, we saw Ella Stevens come in for Morgan Gautrat. Like you could tell that they tried to ride their veterans as long as they could. Petroselli confirming that in the post game as well, when asked about the game. And it just, unfortunately, there just was not enough there. And
even Pugh looked exhausted. I mean, she
Oh,
had
yeah.
probably 4 or 5 full field sprints with the ball, just weaving, slicing and dicing through San Diego's back line and just breaking lines, getting opportunities throughout the 90 minutes of regulation play. And towards the very end of this game, just looking exhausted, looking like she wanted the ball, right? In those moments, she got it. She wanted to get shots off. She wanted to slice and dice, but she couldn't be picking up the ball at half field and running 40 yards to get a
Yeah.
shot off. It was not happening from Hugh anymore. She looked tired towards the end of this game because she had given everything.
Yeah. And we're talking a little bit about personnel versus personnel here, right? Depth versus depth. And we didn't even mention Doniak being one of these players that was able to come in that initial second half for the Wave. You still have Amira Ali who comes into this game into
Ooh,
extra time.
talk about a super sub for Casey Stoney. Amira Ali stepping on the pitch, her first 3 touches, get around 2 defenders and rip a shot.
Yeah.
It was beautiful. I sat up and screamed incredibly loud for
Madison
10:30 at night or 11:30.
Jody Taylor, it's just like the list went on and on and on for this team. But look, we're talking about some of the veterans as well for this San Diego Wave side. And while they're an expansion side navigating the playoffs for the first time, they have some pretty experienced players. We've talked a bit about Sophia Jakobsen, and she was essential in this game and how it played out. And so was Alex Morgan. We're talking about, Mal Pugh, a player, one of those United States women's national team players that did not go overseas during the international window. Alex Morgan, playing with a bit of a knock and also not going to England and or Spain, playing all 90 minutes plus 2 extra times in this one. And again, the foreshadowing that I was talking about, this game-winning goal off the foot of Alex Morgan, the Golden Boot winner, an MVP candidate. San Diego getting another set piece opportunity. This corner is initially somewhat cleared, but not enough. Falls into space. Jakobsen is able to play the ball back in. Morgan with an opportunity in the box. 1v1. Smart decision here. A bit of a shot cross. It looks like she was trying to get this ball into space. And forgive me if it was Korniak or a different player making this alternate run far post, but it didn't matter because this ball dribbles under Alyssa Nair, and it is 2-1 San Diego Wave.
At halftime, Jen Hildreth and Ali Wagner had the opportunity to speak with Danielle Colaprico and asked her about what needed to be done to kind of keep San Diego at bay. And Colaprico saying point blank, we've talked about the first and second ball all week. We know that they have Korniak who can flick it on, whether it's set pieces, whether it's long balls out of the back from Sheridan. It's the first and second ball that Chicago was focusing on. And then set pieces. Those were the 2 things Colaprico said. Can't give up set pieces. They're going to win those. And then the first and second opportunities. And that's what it was. It was a set piece corner kick. And it was the second ball opportunity that lands right to the far side. And it gets dished off to Morgan. It was the 2 things that Chicago knew San Diego could hurt them on, which moments like that are almost heartbreaking because it's like they knew it. They knew that this was a moment that could punish them, and they had kept San Diego at bay for so long. I mean, minus the equalizer in the 67th minute, this is the 110th minute. We're in extra time at this point, and the shot from Morgan is fantastic, right? Whether it's a shot, whether it's a cross, she does the right thing by keeping the ball low. It's on her left foot, that favorite left foot of Alex Morgan, and it's got power and it's put into traffic. So even if it hits somebody, ricochets, her teammate gets it, it's in the perfect spot. Nair, it does go under her. As soon as we watched this replay, you could tell that Nair knew she should have had it. She knew that she should have done something different, but it doesn't matter because it's put in the right spot by Morgan, and that ends up being the huge, huge difference maker and game-winning goal for San Diego to advance.
Yeah, no, I mean, look, she was in a position to save it, right? And I think in those scenarios, all goalkeepers know that they're ultimately that last line of defense. Tough post game to have to sit in on for Chicago. It was Petroselli and Nair in the end, and Nair doing her best to kind of stay composed in a vulnerable post game and literally said, I should have had that save.
She should have. And you knew it. As soon as you saw the replay, a Nair on the ground, she just puts her head in her hands, and you knew because it went right under her. It's almost like she thought the ball was going to be kicked or redirected, and that's the response. That's what she was waiting for instead of attacking the ball. Nair should have had it. She should have. It starts with a mistake from Sheridan giving the ball away in the opening 10 minutes to Nagasato, and it ends with a goalkeeping mistake in Nair, letting that one go through on the Alex Morgan shot.
Look, Alex Morgan, we had question marks around Morgan and Pugh and how they were going to look and what their impact was going to be in this game. It sort of looked like Morgan took a little time to get into the game. You had Pugh fading towards the end of it, and Morgan with the game winner. You love to see it, quite frankly.
The Golden Boot winner keeps on golden booting.
That's what keeps on golden booting. Look, that's what 26,000 wanted to see in San Diego, right?
We broke a record at the 5:00 kickoff match in Houston with an attendance record at over 21,000 fans in Houston. That was an NWSL playoff record. Snapdragon Stadium, the fans in Southern California, they showed up and they showed out. 5 hours later, we broke another record at 10 p.m. at over 26,000 NWSL fans for the playoffs. We've got a couple more though, right? 2 more coming up. Let's do it, fans. Get out to these games in Portland, in Seattle for OL Reign. Break more records. Let's do it. Why not?
Quarterfinals are over. It's semifinal energy now. I love that. Only the second year for the expanded playoff format, and these quarterfinals didn't disappoint. Tons of fans coming through, records broken within hours of each other, and now the look ahead to the NWSL semifinals, October 23rd. That's when you could catch them on CBS Sports Network. We have San Diego Wave heading on the road to Providence Park will take on number 2 seeded Portland Thorns at 5 p.m. Eastern, and Kansas City Current heading on the road to Seattle, Washington to face OL Reign at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. Make sure you tune in and catch all of the semi-final action. A spot in the NWSL Championship is on the line. Thanks, everybody. That's all we got for you today. Appreciate you being here.